Happy Easter! Jesus is risen. Welcome to Scoop World Order. Happy to have you this Sunday evening. Huge weekend for Ohio State football. Huge student appreciation day yesterday. Tons of great recruits were in effect in the building. Bunch of commitments. A bunch broke last night. Even as we went off the air into the evening, we had a couple more break. One more break last night. One more break today. We're gonna get into all that. New transfer portal ad. Familiar face. Looks like he's coming home. Michi Johnson. Looks like he's coming back to the Bucks. So we're going to break that down. Talk about our new potential running backs coach. What are the schematics that are holding up the process? This is something that it's been interesting. I mean, I'm not holding my breath on the guy, but he looks, he's a fascinating guy. I've studied him for the last 24 hours since he came onto the radar. So we're going to get into that. And I hope you guys had a great Easter. As always, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. All of our super chats are going into Pay It Forward, so this is a great day to pay it forward. If you have questions after this huge weekend, a lot of great intel has been coming out of spring camp for the last 3 weeks or so on BuckeyeScoop.com. If you guys are not members of BuckeyeScoop.com, do not know what you're waiting for because we've been breaking a lot of great news. A lot of intel on days when nobody is allowed in practice except us. We get some really good insight into what's going on when the doors are shut. So would love to have you guys join our site. It has been on fire. A lot of great information. A lot of really big time people working under aliases on our site. So it's actually really cool to see who is signing up for it. So I'd love to have you guys join our community. Shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. And let's have a little fun. Shout out, what was your Easter dinner? My wife Kim threw down fillets. They're awesome. Mac and cheese. It was a phenomenal dinner. So shout out Kim. And we're 2 weeks out from our Buffalo Wild Wings get together that will be on April 13th from 9 a.m. to 11:30. Shout out to our girl, the Queen, Doreen, for posting that on her Twitter. She went and scouted it out. Really excited about it. I think it's going to be a blast. So I'd love to see all you guys before the spring game. Again, April 13th, 9 a.m. to 11:30. We will be there. We will be having a blast. I think a lot of people, it's a good place to tailgate for the spring game. If you guys are going to the game, great. If not, you guys can hang out, watch some of the game with us there at the at B-Dubs. I think it'll be a good time. But with that being said, Nevada, this was a monstrous weekend. Seemingly like nonstop news, nonstop information. Commitment after commitment. TJ Alford, Des Jones, the Carlos Lachlan thing that Zach Smith and Chris Drew broke on Menace of Sports. Carlos Lachlan being the Oregon running backs coach. It looks like he is he's picking up some steam that he could be our next running backs coach. It's on Football Scoop now. They picked it up after Zach broke it. A lot of big stuff. Where would you like to start? David Sanders Jr. looks like he had a blast in Columbus. He sees kind of the Parrish Johnson super highway to the NFL. Where do you want to start with this tonight?
Well, yeah, so much to talk about that. The unbelievable scrimmage slash practice on Saturday. But let's start with the recruit. Let's go through the four recruits that we were able to nail this weekend, because recruiting is the lifeblood of every team. And while I'm not as excited about recruiting as I used to be, with NIL and transfer portal and guys being able to come in and coming out, recruiting still matters. Recruiting still matters, and the great teams in general, unless you're involved in the largest cheating scandal in the history of college football, generally success follows recruiting. And so for Ohio State, when they're recruiting well, things go well for them, and when they're not, things get a little bit tougher. So, I mean, to land London Merritt and Tarvis Alford, followed with Des Jones and Deshaun Stewart in rapid succession like that, I mean, let's talk about Des Jones just for a little bit, just because I remember we did a video on Des Jones 2 years ago, I think. I mean, it was a long time ago. I'm not really good with time, but I remember you called me up and you're like, "Man, there's this kid that's just we got to talk about this kid." And I'm like, "Really? Who is this guy?" And you're like, "Oh man, he's a phenom. He's unbelievable." And lo and behold, he ends up recruiting the class before anybody ever heard of him. But why don't you talk a little bit about Des Jones and why you thought enough of him to do something on him years ago when he was a relatively unknown player?
Well, I mean, I'm literally looking at the actual YouTube video right now. We did it on um, March 2nd of 2022. Des Jones was a kid. He's out of Jersey. He was 14 years old. He got offered by Penn State and by Ole Miss. And I honestly, I'm not a huge recruiting guy. I'm not a, it's not really my forte. I'm going to show you how primitive our show kind of used to look. This is kind of hilarious. So I'm going to flick this on real quick so you guys get a quick laugh. This is, I paused this video so you can see me, no backdrop. But Des Jones, you can kind of see is like, I'll expand that to make that full screen. So it was Des Jones. He was a freshman and he was playing at DePaul, which is a powerhouse in Jersey. And, they played Don Bosco Prep, 6 catches for 93 yards. Don Bosco is like a nationally like top 10 team in the entire country. But we did a Phenom episode, and how I learned of Des Jones is the funniest thing of all time. So a lot of you guys have hobbies. Like I play NHL 24 online, and I play with really, really good players. The guy that I was playing with is actually he had the most goals in the entire game, 3 years ago. And I played with him a lot. I played center for him in sixes on NHL on the video game online. And I became buddies with him, and we played a lot, and I talked. I said, so what do you do? And he's like, Buckeye Scoop. Does that mean like you like Ohio State? I said, well, I run a website called Buckeye Scoop. That's my name on the game. And it's funny because he's like, well, I coach a kid who's a freak. He's a and again, I always kind of, when people tell me how good someone is, I always kind of compare it relatively to what they've seen. Like when Nevadabuck tells me a guy's a really good hockey player, Nevadabuck has been around top 5 draft picks in the NHL draft that played for the Portland Winterhawks. So he knows what he's talking about when he talks about hockey, football the same way. When Brett Getz from South Florida Express tells me that a kid is like when he tells me JJ Smith is an absolute phenom superstar. When he said this like the last 3 years that I've been talking to Brett, and he says, yeah, he's going to be unbelievable when he goes to college. And then he shows up and he's unbelievable. Or if he says the guy isn't good, he's usually pretty on point. Dez was a guy, I was aware of a couple years ago because of just a happenstance, someone that I randomly met on Xbox. Like it's one of those weird things where, and I told, Mark Pantoni about it. And I literally looked the text up last night because I still have it, where it's like, hey, there's this kid, Des Jones. He's 14, and this is weird, but he just got offered by Penn State and Ole Miss, but he's like the biggest Ohio State fan in the world. And he played against Don Bosco and had 6 catches for 93 yards. It's like a 14-year-old, which is like, when you say that out loud, that's insane. So you might want to keep him on your radar. Then lo and behold, 2 years later, he's a Buckeye. So that's one of those crazy ones, but he's a wicked athlete. He's developed substantially over the last couple years. There might not be a harder room to get an offer in the country than Ohio State wide receivers. Like we're not taking Alex Stumps anymore, and we're not taking, guys that Rocco Pentellos and those types of kids anymore. We're taking kids that are like Des Jones. We're taking like guys that are, you got to be one of the best players in the entire country. You got to be like one of the top 5 or 6 players in the country to get an offer at Ohio State and play receiver here. So Des is that. He's a freaky athlete. It plays with a big time edge. I'm actually gonna flick his film on here, but yeah, it's just one of those weird things where that was one where I just happened to come across that. It wasn't like I was out saying, oh, let me, blow off some steam and play some Xbox, and I magically like unearthed this guy. The guy I played with was his like position coach. So it was like the funniest thing I've ever seen. But here's some film of Des. Again, he's a monster athlete, man. He's a big dude. He's strong. He's really fast. And he plays, Jersey has big time football. And some of those leagues, Urban used to love Jersey because, when you talk about like Don Bosco and, Bergen County, they've got monstrous schools out there. They can play with anybody. They can, those are the ones that are in the showcases where they play like, St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, and they play Bishop Gorman in Vegas, and they play Modern Day. They'll have like some showcase game somewhere to start the season. Like these are the kind of teams that are playing in it. It's these really good Jersey teams, good Ohio teams too. But yeah, I'm excited for this kid. I'm glad that he's a Buckeye. Again, he's wanted to be a Buckeye for a long time, but he's got big upside. He's a worker. That was a nasty route that he just hit right there. But like I said, this is this is a kid that I think he's going to be. I think he's underrated right now, but I think as he keeps progressing, man, he's gonna have a monstrous future. Uh, Nevada, you've watched some tape on Dez, and obviously we're watching a little bit more now. What excites you about Dez? Because, like I said, I've known this kid for literally. We did a video on this kid 2 years ago, and it was funny because Bill Greene, he's like, anyone that had this guy in the class can take a bow, and I was like, well, I kind of did, but I mean, I did like, I'm not a recruiting guy. I don't really, I like to cover recruiting and see it, but I'm not like calling kids and interviewing them and going and standing at camps because I think all that stuff's worthless with modern technology now. But your thoughts on it, Nevada?
Yeah, just I mean, you just love having those explosive wide receivers, and as you said, a guy that's able to come out and do it, as a 14-year-old against older kids, against good quality high school competition like that. You can just never have enough players, and to get an offer and to be able to have a committable offer into Brian Hartline's wide receiver room right now, when we're turning away or letting kids know that we've recruited over them that are really good wide receivers from down in Florida, it really just speaks to how good and how highly regarded Des Jones is. But um, I mean, the wide receiver room at Ohio State right now is just absurdly good, and the irony of the whole thing is that the best of the bunch is the true freshman at JJ Smith. And so I didn't want to bring this back to JJ Smith, but I had to. I mean, he's the best of the bunch. I mean, he's, and that's not a knock at anybody else. That's not saying Emeka's not great, or I don't like Carnell Tate, or Brandon Ennis needs to get his foot better, or whatever. It's just, I mean, JJ Smith's a super freak, and we're in a situation where we're really blessed. But Dez is going to be fun to watch. I don't know how good he'll be in college because you just never really know until they get here. But he's explosive. He's used to going up against the best, and he's going to be a lot of fun to watch when he's here.
Here's my question for you, and this will be crazy town. And I know Caleb Downs is probably the answer. In your opinion, again, this is like hyperbole, like supernovas at this point. How many players on the team do you think are better than JJ Smith right now?
Wow.
I mean, because you say Caleb Downs, and that's the easy one, but Caleb Downs was only a freshman last year, and he kind of had the same. He kind of had that JJ-ish buzz, but he's a safety. I mean, safeties don't have the impact that receivers do in modern football.
No, I'm going to say the crazy thing. I don't think there's a better player on the team than JJ Smith. I just don't.
I mean, that's a real question, and you guys put that in the chat. Put it in the chat. What guys is it? Because you can say JT, Jack Sawyer. I mean, if you said I had to start a team tomorrow and I had to pick one guy for Ohio State, like I'm probably taking JJ. And I love Jack Sawyer, and I love JT, and I love Cody Simon and Denzel. But I mean, JJ was dunking all over Denzel on Saturday. So it's like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, O-line, I'm not taking any of those guys. And it's not dogging the O-line out, but this kid, I mean, he's that good. He could be the best receiver in the country, which again, it's crazy, but hey, he's on our team. So we're going to enjoy him, and we have him for 3 years. So that'll be good. But yeah, I think Dez is going to be this is a different cat now, man. I'm just excited to watch him. We got a lot of film to break down. The portal guy will say, it looks like Michi's coming back to the basketball team. I know that some of you guys are basketball fans on here, but I think that got done. I got that 2 nights ago. It's an NIL thing with the foundation. I think they got him locked up, so I think that'll be absolutely fantastic for the team, and for Diebler. Again, like you look at the team, and we won't spend much time on basketball, but Nevada. After you see that we beat 2 Final Four teams, like you feel pretty good about the direction of the basketball program, don't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, we beat Alabama, we beat Purdue this year, and like you said, that's half of the Final Four. And I think Diebler's earned a shot. Willie, it's so hard to say with basketball because you just you need the players, everything's got to kind of come together. But I think I'm excited about getting Michi back. I like Michi. I like Michi when he was here. I think that's a great ad for them, and I think I think it's a good sign for the basketball program that you have guys coming back to the program. That generally means the program's getting in good shape, getting healthy, getting a good reputation. So I'm excited about that. And but before we go, let's make sure we talk about the Oregon running back coach too before we get too far afield, because Again, you mentioned Menace to Sports broke it that Carlos Lachlan, the running back coach from Oregon, looks like he's going to be the next running backs coach at Ohio State. You wonder what's the holdup? Why are they doing it? Well, apparently, in his contract with Oregon, his buyout goes down by 50% tomorrow on April 1st. So that's what the holdup is. That's why there's some sort of a delay in terms of the announcement on this. But it looks like Carlos Lachlan, running back coach from Oregon, will be the next running back coach at Ohio State. And again, credit to Zach and those guys for breaking it. But this is a really good. People that talk about it, and just in terms of recruiting. Now, I'm not going to talk about running back coaching because, frankly, I don't even know what makes a great running backs coach. And run here, look at this guy's left elbow. I don't know. I really don't know. But I know recruiting, and I understand what elite recruiting looks like. And this guy can recruit. This guy can recruit with the best of them. And now, Ryan Day will have taken a recruiting group that was pretty good, with an elite guy in Heartline, and now he's just putting monsters in there. Now you've got, Tim Walton, James Laurinaitis, Carlos Lachlan, along with Brian. You have developed an elite recruiting group, and Ryan Day called a shot on this. Ryan Day said, "Look, I'm going to go out and hire guys, and my number one objective for them is to be elite recruiters." And you can get away with having Chip Kelly as your offensive coordinator, or Jim Knowles as your defensive coordinator, who aren't like the most dynamic young guys that are going to be out there recruiting, but because you've got these monsters out there doing the job. And I think all the credit in the world to Ryan Day for him having reconfigured his staff, having done what he's done. And when this one gets done, man, super excited about it. I think A+ hire by, and what a difference already told. You guys will notice immediately the difference between this and the Tony Alford experiment that we had for all those years. Big upgrade incoming for Ohio State and for Ohio State fans. So time to get excited.
Yeah, this guy's a grinder. I've done a ton of studying just so I'd be ready for this episode today. But he's a guy that he was working long hours and in law enforcement type work. He'd show up to Memphis as a volunteer strength coach. He saw his bulletproof vest on from work the night before, and he'd show up to meetings in boots and a bulletproof vest. This guy's like, he really wanted this. He was a high school coach. Got turned down. Yeah, he's the classic coaching story. He got turned down by everybody, and then finally he got the strength coach at Memphis, who's out Florida State, was a volunteer guy, and said that he could, hey, we'll let you come on as a volunteer and help out and see how you do. And he had a wife and 2 kids, and he's working nights, his regular job. He was volunteering in the strength room, and worked his way up to being a high school relations guy, and then he went to Florida State as high school relations guy. Then went to Western Kentucky as a running backs coach. But some of the guys who's around at Memphis are guys that you would know from your fantasy football teams. Tony Pollard from the Cowboys, Antonio Gibson from the Redskins, Dale Henderson from the Rams. Those guys are all guys that were around him that he helped out in the weight room. Wasn't the formal running backs coach yet, but he's been around some good ones. And again, I said the most important part about this hire is he's got to be a dynamic recruiter. This guy's from the South. He's from Montgomery, Alabama. Obviously had that 1 year as a relations, high school relations guy at Florida State. I think that's important. Something we haven't talked about is he's been on staff at Oregon for the last few years. So guess who's our second hardest game on the schedule this year? Outside. And honestly, that's probably the hardest game on the schedule. But I never like to say that there's a harder game than Michigan, especially after they've beaten us 3 straight times. But he's going to be, helpful against Oregon. He's going to know what's going on inside that program. Now, is he going to win the game for us? No. But he could give us a little bit of intel. I'm sure that they'll have all different signals and they'll scramble everything up. But I like this guy. I'm excited about him. I don't want to get too excited because I'm I've been left at the altar by DeMarco Murray and everybody else that I've been excited about. But this guy, he's an interesting guy, and he hasn't been coaching very long at the college level. A year at Western Kentucky as an on-the-field coach, a couple years at Oregon. And so he's pretty new to it. But, he coached high school for 8 years. And for any of you guys that are high school coaches, if you haven't ridden the yellow school bus to a game, you're not really a real coach to me. Because, those guys got to go and make sure those mouthpieces and water bottles and do the laundry. And so I have all the respect in the world for high school coaches because those guys they don't have 800 people on staff to do all that stuff for him. So this guy did that for a long time in inner city Memphis, which, that's not exactly, New Albany. It's not exactly like easy street over there. So, and he turned some pretty bad teams around and they won. So, I think the guy, he's tough. I think he wants it. I think he'll be dynamic in a living room with parents, recruiting kids. He's a guy, he's youthful. He's got a lot of energy. I'm excited. It'll be interesting to see. This gets him a little closer to home. Being from Alabama. I mean, all of his prior jobs prior to Oregon obviously were, Memphis, Kentucky, Florida State. Obviously, in coaching, you don't really have any geography because you're basically moving all over the place. But when you're from Alabama and he played football at Chattanooga, Ohio is way closer than Oregon is. So I think that'll be exciting for him. And this is the kind of guy I would just want to unleash this guy in the South. Like send him into Georgia, send him into Bama, send him. I mean, I don't know what kind of relationships he has. Obviously, he hasn't lived in Alabama in a long time, but he lived down there for a long time, and that's not normally a terribly fertile recruiting ground for Ohio State. But I mean, guess who else is from the Montgomery area from Pike Road? Quinshon Judkins. So I mean, Quinshon is going to love this guy because they have the same hometown essentially. So this will be interesting. Nevada, what else? Because like I said, I want an energized guy on the recruiting circuit, a guy who's hungry, a guy who can relate and really bring it home for these kids. Is there anything else that you'd want out of him? Because I think he's going to do. If we end up getting this guy, I'm really excited about him.
Yeah, no, I like you said, he checks all the boxes, and the recruiting monster and the Southern ties. We've talked about that a lot. I mean, why do you want that? Why is it important? Because that's where the running backs are from. The running backs are generally from the South. They're from Texas. They're from Georgia. They're from Florida. That's where the running backs are coming from, because we know we'll get the Ohio kids. The Ohio kids, we've already got the kind of the in with, but we need them from the other places, and that's what you have. So I look at this. I'm hoping it gets done. We have been left at the altar on a few. It doesn't. It seems like this one's there, but so we'll save our wild celebrations and our massive upgrade assertions until he's actually signed on the dotted line. But I think I understand why it's being held off until tomorrow. There's certainly some significant financial considerations to doing so, but I'm excited. I'm excited about it, and anybody was going to be an upgrade over Alford, but this is absolutely an upgrade. And for the fans, you can hear me say it, but you'll see the difference. You'll know. Nobody will have to tell you that there's a different running back coach in there, because it'll be fairly obvious really, really soon.
Yeah, I totally agree. We have some super chats, and we will do a little bit more film stuff. Mello, what is up, my man? Happy Easter. I hope you had a great Easter with you and your family. Oh boy. And also thank you for the deuce. Plexico Burris's son is a wide receiver on DePaul's team. Do we offer? I mean, if he's anywhere like his old man, then I would take him in a millisecond, because Plexico Burris was an absolute monster at his peak in the NFL and really at Michigan State. I mean, he was a difference maker. I love giant wide receivers. Giant. Those guys are just, they're terrifying, because, like JJ is like a Plexico, except he's way faster. He runs better than Plexico did. But Plexico, if you don't have a 6'3" corner, which most teams don't, he's going to destroy you. And I remember that game in Green Bay when they were playing the Packers, and it was like, minus 50 degrees or whatever it was, where Tom Coughlin's face was red as a cherry. I mean, he dominated that game. And I mean, that's a different cat. So I don't know. I haven't watched his film. Frankly, I hadn't heard of him. I let Brian Hartline do that, and he is really good at it. So we'll see. But Nevada, your thoughts? I mean, if we could get another Plexico, I'd take him in a millisecond. But I haven't heard anything about him. And Mel, I promise I'll take a look at him and see if he's quality. But again, the one unit on this team I have no worries about with recruiting is wide receivers. But your thoughts on taking Plexico Burris' son? I'm gonna look him up right now, actually.
Well, I guess I have a question, and this is a serious question, because the worst loss that I've ever had to sustain as an Ohio State fan, and we've had some terrible ones, was that '98 Michigan State game. And was Burris in that game, or if I blocked it out? I mean, and I'm serious. Like I don't remember. I remember some wide receiver that was really tall went off and seemed to catch like 500 yards worth of passes, and I don't remember who it was. Was it Plexico Burris in that
I mean
game? Remember
that would have been his time because he got drafted in either 98 or 99. I remember because
okay.
I mean there was let me see the box score receiving. No, yeah, Plexico he had 4 for 125 against Ohio State in 98.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was terrible.
yeah.
So just even bringing his name up now kind of gives me post traumatic stress disorder. I don't know. I don't know where that loss ranks for other people, but for me, if I had to rank, and they all hurt, but that one's number one. That one hurts worse than any because I thought that '98 team might have been the best Ohio State team I've ever seen, and to lose that way when the punt hits Nate Clements in the back, and I mean it was just terrible. Everything about that game was just inexplicable and terrible.
I've loved the games that are like that. It's I don't yeah, I mean I lost 2 national championships. I can tell you all about those types of games. I I still think that the Michigan State game in 15 was worse. I mean, it's my opinion. I think the 15 team was better than the 98 Ohio State team. And that Michigan State team was worse. And I mean, this Michigan State team obviously is one of the biggest upsets in Ohio Stadium's history. But like Nick Saban was their head coach, and they doubted it pretty good because the thing Saban he's like Belichick. He's not gonna let your number one guy beat you. So you look at the box score. David Boston, 5 catches for 43 yards. Best player on the field for Ohio State on offense by far. And they shut him down. So that's
Yeah, but
part of
you got to remember about that game. We were up like 16 points, and they were punting and punted. And I mean, it wasn't like one of those ones where, like the Michigan State 15 game, it was always close or we were behind or whatever. Like this game was over. Like we were up, and then all of a sudden we just couldn't stop them. And man, horrible game. I don't know. Like some people go back and watch the old games and they'll watch the losses. I don't even understand that at all. I could never ever. My idea of hell would be having to sit through watching this game over and over again because it was that painful for me. But I digress.
yeah. I can think of some games I don't want to relive either. So I'm right there
Yeah.
with you, my dude. Jeremy Moreland, thank you for being Scoop Ultra member. Jeremy made me this awesome cup. This is one of the coolest looking cups I've ever seen in my life. So I mean, this thing is like really, really nice. So appreciate you, my dude. Again, this thing is going to be by the pool, filled with water. I'm sure this summer, a lot of water. Promise. Happy Easter, all. Scoop family is awesome. Appreciate you, my man. Happy Easter to you and yours as well. Nevada, I'm sure you want to wish Jeremy a happy Easter as well for putting your logo on a very slick looking cup.
Well, my logo, the cup went from good to great when he put my logo on it. So yeah, I salute him and salute him for his excellent taste in terms of doing that. And that way you can always look at my kind of thing. It's like, almost like having my face looking at you from the pool every weekend. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God. I know. It'd be perfect saying, Kirk, we have to pod tonight. Kirk,
We have to
we have
pod.
to pod
No,
tonight.
make sure
Put down the
make
high
sure
put down the high noons, Kirk. We have to
make sure you're
pod
drinking
tonight.
water. Make sure
Lots of
you're
water. Make
hydrated.
sure you hydrate. You'll like DoorDash me an IV. You'll have the IV person shove a thing in my vein to make sure I'm ready to go. Be perfect. Kevin Newby, thanks for the deuce. Appreciate you. This is great. One Alfred out, one Alfred in. I like it. Nevada OH.
I-O.
Yeah, we added TJ Alford. TJ Alford he's a beast now, man. I'm excited about this kid. I think he's gonna do great here. A kid from Vero Beach, all Buckeye. He's a classic spread offense linebacker now. Good looking kid, man. Nevada, what do you like about TJ Alford? He goes by TJ, not Tarvis, but Tarvis is what they have on his little recruiting thing. But he's almost a 5-star. Number 7 linebacker in the country. Your thoughts on him?
I just love guys that can run. I love linebackers that can run, and he is definitely in the mold of the modern linebacker. What you want to look, when you're running those 2 linebacker sets, those guys that can cover, that are thumpers, that can go in there and step up and hold. I mean, TJ can do it all, and I'm really excited about it. The people that I know that follow him a lot closer than I do. They're like, dude, this guy's a monster. I mean, you guys really got one. They don't think there's a better linebacker in the country than him. Now, I know there's probably not a lot of difference between 1 and 3 and 7 or whatever it is, but they think he might be the best linebacker in the country, and that Ohio State stole one here. So that made me very excited. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I knew that this question was coming. Nevada, there's one guy that we're going to be talking about an awful lot, probably up until signing day. Best player in the country, in my opinion. But here's a super chat on it. David Sanders Jr., is he in or out? 5-star left tackle. Really, really good player. We watched some of his film. Again, he had a great time in Columbus because everybody that comes to Columbus has a great time. Like, I don't even know why people talk to these kids after their visits because what do they all say? Wow, the visit was amazing. Wow. Well, these are unofficial visits. They can't feed the poor kids. So, but, me and Coach X hit it off. We had a great time. The vibe was immaculate. The team was cool. Like, I mean, it's just funny, but like he had the standard interviews where he loved all of it, and I mean, this kid's probably the best player in the entire country. He is a absolute monstrous dude. He's a guy that we got to. This is one where Clemson, South Carolina, Georgia, everybody wants this guy. We get the last crack as the official visits. I think. I mean, again, the thing I've learned about recruiting is with the direction of Ohio State football currently and the caliber of our NIL collective, namely the foundation, anything's possible at this point. I mean, like, we took J.J. Smith out of South Florida. So if we can do that, and we can beat Bama and Georgia and Florida State and the mountains of money that was offered to J.J. to get that kid, we can do anything. Julian Sane, who's from Carlsbad, California. I don't even know if he'd ever been to Ohio. I mean, I think he probably came to a camp, but like, we got him. So if there's ever a time in the history of Ohio State football where we could get a kid like David Sanders, who everybody wants and is the best player in the country, it's now. I mean, again, he wants to be Paris Johnson. Paris Johnson, 3 and out. Paris Johnson had one of the greatest careers in Ohio State history. I mean, the only thing he didn't do was win a national championship and beat Michigan. But other than that, first team All-American. He graduated, started, 2 years, played at a really high level, and 6th overall pick in the draft. Like, I mean, any player in the history of football, if they're coming out of high school and they can sign up for, hey, this is what you can either have option A, which is everything Paris Johnson did, 1st round pick, 6th overall, All-American tree, or option B, random, unknown. Everyone in the world's picking option A. Like, that's as good as it gets. And that's what David Sanders wants. So, Nevada, your thoughts on David Sanders? I'm going to pull a bit of his film up right now so we talk over him, but he is he's a monster now.
Well, yeah, I'll answer the question. Is he in or is he out? Well, he's not in, but he's not out. So
No.
for Ohio State, this is one that's going to go down to the end. It's that kind of recruitment. So just, you have to be ready for it. From Ohio State's perspective, they feel like they made up a lot of ground. They feel like, they're right in there with them. The way that Ohio State is recruiting right now, look, Ohio State recruiting's always been, my entire lifetime following Ohio State recruiting, it's never been bad. It's always been good. It's always been, top 5, top 3, top 2, top 1, whatever it is. But it's never been better than it is right now. The brand's never been hotter than it is right now. That's a combination of factors. It's a combination of the kind of the ascendance of Ryan Day, because as these other coaches kind of fall by the wayside, whether it be to the NFL, whether it be to retirement, whatever it is, Ryan Day is becoming kind of the elder statesman for coaching, which is kind of crazy to think about after like 5 years. But he's a young guy who could be here for a while. Ohio State's the now program. Bama's on the decline. Michigan's on the decline. You've got Ohio State that's going to be stepping up into that kind of rare air, that consensus #1 spot, up there with Georgia. And I think from a recruiting standpoint, you're going to reap the benefits of that. So a kid like Sanders, Ohio State feels like they made great strides. Ohio State feels like they're going to be in it. I know I've talked to some kids that are more optimistic about with Sanders, but I don't think they know, because the kids always say, they're always going to say they're excited, they want to be part of it. Um, there are some kids that haven't publicly committed yet that are silent commitments to Ohio State, and we can talk about that a little bit later in the show. But Sanders is not one of them. But I wouldn't. I would definitely up whatever your percentages were for Sanders going to Ohio State, increase them after this weekend because Ohio State made up ground, made big strides, and I think they'll be in it till the end.
Yeah, like I said, I think that this kid's got. I mean, you watch this film, you can watch like 3 plays, and you can see that this guy's better than any other tackle in the country. I mean, this guy might be better than. I mean, he's better than the guys that we wanted last year, like Jordan Seaton, the big kid, the big fat kid that went to Colorado. Like this kid, the way he moves and how light he is, because he looks like he's like 265 ish, and he's listed at 270. Maybe he's up to 280 right now. He looked bigger than. I mean, obviously this is from last, you know, October or November. So I mean, we're into April. I mean, when you're in high school, you could gain 10, 15 pounds over those months just because you're lifting, you're growing, you're hitting puberty, whatever. Um, but this kid, like the way he moves is just completely effortless and something that frankly very jealous of because I had nowhere near this kid's talent. But he's like I said, I think that the combination of Urban Meyer shifting the focus of Ohio State's recruiting to more of a national deal. Honestly, I think a lot of this is because like Urban Meyer like walked so Ryan Day could run. The shift to the national thing, the shift to the budget to the recruiting, the shift to the focus on graphic design and branding. That was all Urban. Like Urban did all that. Yeah, so we hired Sammy Silverman. Obviously, we hired Mark Pantoni. They've fleshed out that whole arena to a much deeper extent now in the recruiting field. But for national kids, like it's Ohio State is the coolest brand out now because again, people are going to see these JJ Smith clips on Twitter and on three and on 247 and on Rivals and oh my God, that kid's only a freshman and he's doing that. Wow, he's going to be that. He's going to be that next dude. And they see, the proficiency in the draft. And the thing about Ohio State is like we're sending all positions to the draft because it used to be, oh well, who's the last quarterback who's gone, to the league from Ohio State or who's been good or whatever. And it's like, well, now we got CJ, we got Justin. Obviously with the tragic passing of Dwayne, but he was another first rounder. And again, as you keep growing this out, Julian Sainz probably the next one. Will Howard, Devin Brown, whoever's the starter this year is going to get a crack at it. So, Paris, we just put Paris in the league. You want to play left tackle? We just set a guy 6 overall to the draft, number 1 overall tackle. I think all of that is it's business. And again, I love NIL. I say it all the time. You guys get probably annoyed by how much I love NIL, but it's like, for these kids where, previously distance was a factor. I mean, if these guys are getting like some serious money, all of a sudden like distance isn't a factor because you can fly mom up every weekend or mom and dad or mom and sister, grandma or aunt, uncle, whoever. If you got to buy 4 plane tickets, if you get the amount of money these kids are getting, you can actually do that and say, hey, mom, this is a short-term commitment because all these guys, they're wisening up because they all have agents now. And before you weren't allowed to have an agent. That wasn't part of the deal. Like these guys all have marketing firms because of NIL. So these guys are way, way more educated on the business aspects of football than guys like me ever were 20 years ago. Because before, like if we talked to an agent, it was like, you could lose your eligibility, you could blah, blah, blah. Unless it was sanctioned or you're going into your last year. If you talk to an agent, I mean, you're always like kind of tiptoeing around some murky waters back in the old days. But now they all have agents. So they say, hey, here's the deal. You go to Brian Hartline, he develops, who has that position coach put into the league that looks like you? Like, so for Justin Fry, Paris Johnson, DeJuan Jones. So you have 2 guys that are potential Pro Bowl NFL tackles that he put in the NFL in the same year. Luke Whippler, Pro Bowl center. Donnie will get drafted this year. Matt Jones has a chance to go late in the draft. So I think that these kids they're really getting educated on, hey, it's not all about comfort and being close to home and, I can go get my favorite pillow if I forget it on the weekend at my mom's house. Now it's about, this is a 3 to 4 year commitment to be the best player I can be, to grow, to win games, to have fun. develop as a man, develop as a football player, and get to the National Football League. So, Ohio State at this point is like it's a bullet train to the league if you do everything right. If you do everything the coaches tell you to do, you do everything Coach Mick tells you to do, you get the nutrition dialed in, and you put in the work. Because again, it's not easy. Even if you've got all the talent in the world, like guys like Marvin Harrison, they're Saturday night, 11:30 at night, they're catching balls from the Monarch machine and the Jugs machine, and they're getting treatment, they're getting extra lifting. Like these guys are like addicted to the process now because they see the path. The path isn't some. They're not landing on some dark continent where there's no roads and no paved roads and electricity. Now it's like the whole thing is set up for them. So again, that's what I say. Like for a kid like Jordan Seaton to go to Colorado, I'm like, okay, so you're gonna put you're the number one tackle in the country, and you're gonna put your life in the hands of Coach Prime, who, and again, I like Deion. I mean, I always was a Deion Sanders fan. But he just hired Phil Loadholt as his O-line coach, and Phil Loadholt has never been a full-time O-line coach in his entire career. So he's got the number one tackle in the country in his room, and like I'm not trusting that. If that kid's my son, there's no way. I'm saying, dude, you're going to Mickey. You know who I'm sending my kid to? Mickey Marotti. Period. And like that's the guy I want to talk to. The strength coach. I don't care about the line coach. I want to talk to the strength coach. Make this kid into a monster, and that's what Mickey does time and time again because. Again, when these kids come out, they look different, they act different, they're NFL ready, and GMs love that, and scouts love that. And you know who else loves that? People in the transfer portal. Like I've talked to like agents, and they say, Ohio State people will pay a premium for Ohio State players in the portal because they know of how hard Mickey trains them and how well they're coached up. And when they show up, they're ready to work. They're not like neophytes when it comes to actually putting in work and grinding because. They grind these kids hard. It ain't easy being an Ohio State player. It's easier than it was under Urban, but it's still really hard under Ryan. So I like this kid. Again, this will be our most talked about player, probably more than the next 30 players after him on the recruiting scene because this is the guy that everybody wants, and I can see why. I watched this tape, and he's an absolute monster. So Sharp, I hope he's in. Again, I've had these weird premonitions on kids before, like Brandon Ennis. Like I remember, like I told you, I watched Brandon Ennis at camp, and everyone said, "Oh, we have no chance of getting that kid." And then, sure as can be, he's a Buckeye. So, could we get this kid? Yeah. I mean, if he's smart, he's going to come here and 3-and-out and be a top 10 pick. But sometimes these kids, I mean, like because Clemson doesn't put guys in the league like we do. Not offensive tackle, no chance. So, Pooh Beard, what's up, my man? Appreciate you. Thank you for the 5. Love Dez's tape. I do as well. That's the first time I've watched his junior tape, and I was watching his freshman tape 2 years ago, which is hilarious because it was, a little more grainy and a lot less plays because he was kind of a spot. He didn't get pulled up until like mid-season, but when he got pulled up, he was a factor. His routes are crisp and shifty. Reminds me a lot of Jackson Smith-Njigba's high school tape. That is a great tape to watch if you guys are ever bored because his tape is incredible. What comps do you have for Jamie French? And what should we expect? Nevada OH.
IO.
Okay, so Jamie French's comparison, and I hate saying this because this guy, outside of, and again, I'm very biased to the guys that I actually played with because the guys that I played with, you're always going to have a severe, but like, I mean, I take Troy Smith over CJ Stroud, and people look at me like I'm crazy because CJ's 2 overall in the draft and Troy went 6th round, but Troy literally got me gold pants. CJ didn't get me no gold pants. So I'm very biased, and I always will be biased. Like I'm biased towards Ted Ginn, Antonio Holmes, Anthony Gonzalez, because those guys were dogs, and they're all first-round picks. They kind of set the standard, and frankly, they didn't play in the modern passing era that we play now, where it's basically chuck and duck football. But to me, the guys that I talked to for the South Florida Express, comparison to Jamie French, Garrett Wilson, which is terrifying because Garrett Wilson is my favorite receiver that we've ever had post the guys I played with. So if he's anywhere near Garrett, and Garrett was, he was a Molotov cocktail on the field. He just he was that explosive. I mean, he was ridiculous, but that's what Jamie is. I mean, they kind of, it's funny because even people that talk to him, the SFE guys and talk to the people in Hazer, they even say he kind of acts like Garrett, which, Garrett's a little bit of a different cat. Like he likes his chai tea lattes and stuff, but Hey, as long as you're running a 4.3, I don't care what you're drinking at the coffee shop. It's great. But I love Garrett Wilson, and I think that this kid is an absolute monster, and I mean, but he's slick to the game. I mean, these guys, he looks up to JJ and he looks up to Carnell and Ennis, and I mean, these guys all know, like, hey, last year, like Brandon Ennis, who was best receiver in the country the year before in high school, didn't play much. Had a touchdown against Purdue and kind of like held a towel and chewed sunflower seeds for most of the games. Carnell Tate, who was incredible, didn't play a ton. Didn't have huge numbers as a freshman. JJ, I think is going to be out. I think JJ is going to start game one and light the world on fire from the first play of the Akron game. I mean, I'm going to predict now he's going to have at least one touchdown in the Akron game, because why wouldn't you? But Jamie's he's nasty now, and again, you watch him run his routes. Exciting player. Nevada, do you have a different comp on Jamie French? Because he's going to be in this class. Like Jamie's going to be a Buckeye, and I think this is going to be a guy that people are going to be ultra excited for, because he is filthy, and he's a great kid. And again, I always get excited when people tell me that he's a great kid, nice kid, good personality, likes to work hard, likes to be coached. Because the people I talk to, they'll also tell me if a guy's a turd. Because you don't want to take too many turds, because then all of a sudden the whole mechanism of the Woody Hayes tilts on its axis when you have too many turds. It just doesn't work out well. But your thoughts on Jamie French, Nevada?
Well, I don't want to bury the lead. We'll just say Jamie French is one of the guys that we've heard is a silent commitment to Ohio State. So we definitely have him in the class. We think he made that. We've had him in the class for a while. We think he made that commitment this weekend. And so, yeah, again, big time get. No, it's funny you said Garrett Wilson, because that's who I've heard, as well. And, he certainly models his play after Garrett's. Just an explosive athlete, a guy that's, he's one of those guys that'll leap up and catch the ball over guys. Got the great catch radius, really explosive athlete, really good with the ball in his hands. So no, he's a big time. When you talk about a 5-star high school wide receiver, you're talking about a guy like him. I mean, when you watch him, you just know. I always kid with Kirk, because I'm like, hey, sometimes I'll watch these highlight tapes and everybody looks great. It's a highlight tape, so everybody looks great. But when you watch enough of them, you see there's levels, and it's like watching hockey players or soccer players or swimmers or whatever. When you're watching the real deal. Well, you get that when you watch Jamie French. He is just a cut above. He's an elite athlete in playing with a group of elite athletes, and going to be a great addition to the Ohio State wide receiver room. And we have him 100% in this class. So another reason for Ohio State fans to be excited. Another reason why this might be one of the best recruiting classes in Ohio State history. So get excited.
Yeah, I mean, because we already have a 5-star quarterback, Tavion St. Clair. I mean, we get David Sanders, I think it is. You get him and Carter Lowe as your bookend tackles. The receivers will be ridiculous. I mean, there's a lot of really good players that want to come to Ohio State right now. So for some of these guys, they better jump in the boat, because the boat is filling up quick. But yeah, I love Jamie French. Devin, what's up, my man? I hope you and Cujo had a happy Easter along with your girlfriend. Ohio 7715. Thank you for being a Scoop Box member. Thank you for being a wrench brother. You and Tora keep us clean, along with Kim, sniping at the people that act like idiots in the chat. So appreciate what you do. What's up, family? I'm back with the momentum we have right now. I think we are in on anyone we want. I agree. Met several Buckeyes in the Virgin Islands. Damn, we didn't get invited to that. We were everywhere. Best show and chat in the land. 24-25 Natty Lock. Nevada OH.
I-O.
And Scum sucks. I love that. I hope that you had fun on your vacation. I hope you wore some sunblock, SPF 50. That's when you know you're old, like me. I didn't wear sunblock for the first 35 years of my life, and now when it's nice out, I'm putting the block on, because usually I'm with my in-laws in Naples, and it's nice and hot, and I got to make sure that I can stick around and podcast for a long time and not get skin cancer. Nevada, as we keep moving along, the open practice was, it was one of those interesting things where it was kind of a revelation, but it was also, there's a lot of stuff that we kind of already knew. JJ is obviously excellent. I think the quarterback derby is going to be interesting because you know it's the classic Devin Brown looked better than Will Howard, but then. I love reading tweets like Stanley Jackson's kid who was there, who's I think he plays for Westerville North, plays for Stanley, who's the coach there. He said that Devin was the worst player. There was the worst quarterback there. So talk a little bit about sometimes like when we get practice reports, we get information basically from every Ohio State practice, and it can kind of range wildly based on what people saw, what people liked, what people think is good, and honestly, like when I get these reports, sometimes I question like how smart is the person I'm talking to in terms of actually knowing football? Like, have they ever coached before? Did they play? Or are they just like some random, donor who is in there being hosted and chauffeured around? Because I get it from everybody. And some people, they couldn't draw 11 guys on a chalkboard if you gave them 10. And then some people, could install an entire playbook. But talk a little bit about that because, there's a lot of people saying Devin was better. Will Howard wasn't as sharp as Devin was, but your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you make a great point. It's really it depends. You always have to consider the source. If you're talking to a defensive player, they generally tend to talk about defensive guys, and you're talking to the parent of an offensive player, they'll talk about offensive guys. You're talking about a guy who played defensive back, then they generally focus on the defensive back. So, I'm always considering the source when I'm looking at this information. But the great thing is, I talked to probably a half a dozen people that have been there, regularly and were there on Saturday, and everybody was impressed. There was not a single person. There might have been more impressed with some guys than other guys, but the overall message of what's been going on here in spring football is, wow, this is a deep and talented team. Wow, this might be the most talented team I've ever seen at Ohio State. And I love the little position battles that are going on. The way that the right tackle, right guard stuff that's going on. I think that's super intriguing. Because this practice they were doing a lot. They were putting Montgomery inside and putting Fryer on at tackle, and we know through the closed practices they've been doing exactly the opposite. They've been putting Fryer on the inside and Montgomery at tackle. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with that. I'm not sure what type of combinations. The Hinsman McLaughlin battle's interesting. Seth seemed to have the edge, on Saturday. Guy had his black stripe removed, but Carson's been playing great up until now. So I think there's a lot of intrigue in terms of some little things going on. CJ Hicks emergence. And CJ Hicks came into the season as for me, a huge question mark. And I said it many times. I think with both him and Sonny, I see all the physical measurables. I see the great high school accolades, the 5-star, but I haven't seen it on the field. When they're on the field, they look like lost puppies out there, and I want to see more out of them. Well, CJ's starting to show it. CJ's starting to figure it out, starting to make plays, starting to look more comfortable out there. And as his confidence grows, he's becoming an answer at that second linebacker spot. And I think the fact that Knowles is playing 3 linebackers a lot this spring should tell you that they want to get Sonny on the field as well. So I think that's interesting. We may see more of that gimmicky 3 linebacker look than we might have anticipated. So lots of great stories. But the good news for Ohio State fans is there's just so much talent on this team that we're not beholden to one player. We're not one injury away from being in deep trouble. And I just, having lived through so many seasons where that was always the fear, that was always the concern. You're always worried about somebody going down and everything kind of falling apart. We do not have that situation right now. We have an abundance of talent. We have experienced coordinators, and we've had an almost flawless spring football up till now. So knock on wood. Hope everything continues to be as well. But the A+ off season so far for Ohio State continued all the way through Saturday. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's gonna be a fascinating battle. I think that the line battle is gonna go into camp. I think that with Devin Brown and Will Howard, we were higher on Devin Brown than anybody. I mean, us and Zach were the guys that were saying, he's different. I mean, we had people in the Woody Hayes saying, hey, he's special now. And, and I was rooting for Devin just because I liked his mobility. I liked his high school film. and I think that, he's getting the first turns when they go to scrimmage right now because, they want to see what he's got. I mean, I guarantee he knows the offense better than Will, just because he's been there for so much longer. But I'm rooting for him. I would love if by some miracle he beats out Will Howard. Like, and miracle's not the right word, but it's just like I feel like Will Howard's the favorite just because Ryan went out and got him, and he's older and he's got a lot more experience. And to me, experience matters when you started that many games in college. And Ryan Day comes after you, and they give you a big NIL deal. Like, I think that all adds up as, he's the likely favorite to be the starter. But that being said, Devin's not going to go quietly into the night, which is great. And then Julian Sain is like the wild card where, he's not scared of anything. And again, I love the way Ryan Day spreads the reps around, because something that people don't talk about is that, when I was working with like Urban and Tress and playing, like, we didn't have like the third string quarterback going with the first offense. Like, we had Troy going with the first offense, and then we had the other guys go with the twos and the threes. Like, we didn't like rotate, our fourth string guy in with the ones. But Ryan Day is. I mean, he's had Lincoln Keenholz throw with the ones. He's had Julian throw with the ones, and again, I like that because it does give you a nice scramble. And people, I think part of it is like in the transfer portal era, it makes it easier to calm fears and calm nerves and calm people, because everybody, there's like pocket watching in real life, and then there's people that are like depth chart watching and do I hit the portal, especially at quarterback or only one guy that plays. So all of a sudden, like, say it gets to the end of spring, and again, this is a totally hypothetical situation. Say Lincoln Keenholz is worried at the end of spring about his role on the team. Julian Sain's good. Will Howard's brought in, whatever. He can go and have dad and mom flying. And again, this is totally hypothetical. This has nothing to do. There's no fact to this at all. But I'm just gaming this out in my head as to why Ryan could be doing some of this stuff. Is like, look, if you're Lincoln Keenholz and you don't get a single rep with the ones, and you get a few with the twos, and you're mostly with the threes, like, I think you have a totally different mentality than if you're splitting the reps, not equally, but you're getting some real reps with the first team. I think that's important, because these guys all want like a shot to start. And I think, it's Ryan's job to, evaluate them all, but also give them some hope that if they play well enough, they could be the starter. Where if you're only running with the threes, man, you have no chance of starting your quarterback. So I like it. I think that it's fair. I think that everybody should have to go with, the younger offensive lines that frankly aren't as good. Again, there's always a lot made about the second and third team O lines, and the second and third team O lines across all of college football suck. They always do. They're always young guys. They're always guys they're either old guys that haven't proven that they're good enough to play, or they're young guys that are like straight out of high school and they're not used to the speed of the game. Again, this is me as a player. This is me as a coach. Like, I used to be the guy that actually used to set the rotations for practice. So nobody in the media universe in the entire world can talk more to what this is like than me. And there's just sometimes where you make these rotations and you're just like, oh my God, how can I hide this guy? Who can I put him next to make him look a little bit better? And sometimes you can't. Like, if it's a tackle, man, you can't hide that guy. But that's a real thing. And so when you've got like a D line that has like Caden Curry, who would start at like 100 other schools in the country, Kenyatta, who'd started 100 other schools. Last year they had like Mike Hall. They had Mike Hall running with the threes. Like, I mean, like, that's not going to be great for our offensive line. And this is life. It's just life in the big city. But I like how he rotates it in. And again, I like seeing a quarterback work behind a bad line. In practice, I'm not during a game, but in practice, like, I like to see, how does he handle if he gets pressured? How does he handle if they don't fix the protection? How does he handle if a guy gets beat? Does he get flustered? Does he act like a moron? Does he pick the guy up? Does he try to fix things? Is he mobile? Can he get away from stuff? Because again, I love a mobile quarterback, because if a guy can scoot out of there and the guy gets turned loose and the guy can go out the backside and go run for 15 yards, like, that counts to me. I think that something that most of the geniuses who are at practices on Saturday didn't talk about is that the quarterbacks aren't live. So when you get a guy like Will Howard who's got some wheels to him, He's not going to look as good when he can't run. That used to be like a thing that used to make Troy Smith angry in practice is that trust to have the quarterbacks not live. And, Troy's a guy that can scramble and create and make plays. And it basically, it kind of cuts, it literally cuts your legs off during practice when you can't scramble, and again, it'd be like if, you guys have seen, you guys that play fantasy football, like if you had Lamar Jackson in your fantasy draft, but rushing yards didn't count, like his value plummets. Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, like the guys that could run in the league, they have massive value because all of a sudden it's like starting another running back in your fantasy league. That's kind of what it's like in real life too in football because Troy could go out and scramble and break a defense's back by they'd be off in coverage and he go run for 8 yards and make it 2nd and 2. So that's something to look for with Will Howard. And again, I don't know how you monitor that because they don't ever make the quarterbacks live anymore because they're made out of porcelain. But just something to watch, as we get into the real games where they're going to run that guy a little bit. Especially, we got Devin and Will next year. Like I wouldn't be scared to run Will at all because you've got a really good quarterback right behind him. Nevada, do a little Deshaun Stewart. This was our morning commitment today. He's from DePaul Catholic. So we have like a super highway of Ohio State guys from DePaul Catholic. I think he's underrated. Composite 4-star. 247 has him as a 3-star. He will get the Buckeye bump where he'll probably go up to being like the number 10 safety because he's committed to Ohio State now. And again, you have to understand like the people that do these evaluations are generally people that have never played football. They've never been a scout before. They've never been a GM before. They've never been like, a pro personnel guy like Mark Pantoni is before. And they just wanted to get into the business, and most of them aren't very good, and most of them really don't know what they're doing. So they'll have these guys as like 3 stars and 2 stars and whatever. And then, all of a sudden, Matt Guriani and Jim Knowles will go on him and they're like, oh, he's a 4-star now. So they don't usually have a lot of conviction in their rankings. And the machine that is like 247 and on 3, they always juice the ratings when these guys go to Ohio State just because, when Ohio State gets the number 1 class, they sell more subscriptions to Bucknuts and to Letterman Row and whatever. So there's a little inside baseball on how this stuff really works. But I like this kid, and more importantly, Ohio State likes this kid. What are your thoughts on Deshaun Stewart, Nevada? As he is ringing back in. You there?
I'm here.
What are your thoughts on Deshaun Stewart?
Well, I mean, I like I said, they all look good to me. So I always go to the Ohio State people and I'm like, what do you guys like about this guy? And they're like, man, this guy's a thumper. This guy comes up there, hits guys. I think the rating service have him rated as like the 24th safety or the 12th safety or the 15th safety. And they're like, this is a top 5 guy all day long. Plays the ball extremely well, could play literally on either side of the ball, that kind of an athlete, could return kicks even if he needed to do that. But they love him. They're really excited about it. They think he's underrated, and they think he's a perfect fit for, this. You always talk about the Knowles defense kind of starting for the safeties out. They think he's a premier pickup for them, and they couldn't be more excited about him. They think he's a 5-star talent all day long. And he was one of the guys that they really wanted to get. We're really excited about the commitment, so that definitely made me excited.
How many times in your history have we gotten kids from the same high school, opposite sides of the ball, to commit basically like 18 hours apart? Like I can't remember the last time that's happened. And this is a Jersey high school. This is St. Ed's.
Yeah, this is definitely it's a weird one for sure. It's a weird, and let's put it this way: that team was well scouted for sure, and to I love the New Jersey connection. I've always, I know that Urban Meyer was a huge fan of New Jersey football, certain spots, and I love the fact that Ohio State's just kind of going in there and getting who they want out there on the East Coast because we're always going to dominate the Midwest. You know that we're always going to do well down in Florida. We've had a lot of success in Texas. When you can start dominating the East Coast as well, then I mean, you really become that true national brand. And so these are a couple of exciting commitments for me, and yeah, 2 from the same high school, kind of crazy. I can't remember ever seeing that in my time following football.
Yeah, I remember we took Malcolm from Jersey. Ira Gelford was from Jersey. He was from God, I can't remember what part of Jersey he was from. But Malcolm was from Piscataway, I remember. Something that was cool that Chess used to do is he used to make us take a test on, and this was something that was like, this is like the most Jim Tressel thing ever. But yeah, I like this kid as a safety. He would put us into different groups, like different team groups. This is always something he would do during training camp, where it was like, you know, there was no rhyme. There'd be like one freshman, one junior, one sophomore, one redshirt freshman, one true freshman, all different sides of the ball. Like there's no rhyme or reason as to why he'd have these teams, the way he'd structure them. 5 guys on each team, and he would give us a test, and you had to name every single player. It would just be like a one through whatever, a roster sheet. It would just be like, if there were 2 number ones, it'd be like 1, 1, 2, and it would be the player's name, the high school, and the hometown. And he scored it. And then he even expanded it to like all the coaches, the support staff, the weight room staff, everybody. So like we would take this test during camp in groups of 5, and we would have, there'd be a day where we do conditioning and we'd have to run. And it was like, the higher you scored on the test, the less you had to run. So, this was like a competitive thing, man. And like we would study for because there was no phones. There was no, this is like a real test now. This wasn't like, hey, you get to Google guys on your phone, cheat sheets. He had coaches like proctoring all the things. Like it was like, it was in the Woody Hayes like team meeting room. So, you couldn't cheat because the coaches would walk around making sure nobody had phones or anything. But, I remember like, I think my team came in like second or third. So we only had to run like, it was like everybody had to run like 10 half gassers or something, or like 5 or something. And then, the first, group was done, and then the second group. So it was like, there were some groups that, man, they had to run a lot, if you did bad on that test. But I always thought that was cool because like to this day, I still remember where some of my teammates went to high school and where they're from because of that stupid test. Because again, it was important. It was a good way for us to get out conditioning. And again, that was like some of the little nuanced stuff Tress like would do where he wanted everybody to kind of like know each other and not just like ignore each other. And that's kind of like his magic, because people say that's kind of like cornballish or whatever, but I thought it was cool. And that's why I still remember that Malcolm was from Piscataway when, he hasn't played there in 20-ish years, and he's lived in Philly and New Orleans and wherever else. So yeah, a guy that was exciting. I just saw his name in the chat, who's really coming on. Talked to some of the guys, the SFE guys, Jaden Bonsu. I'm excited for that kid, man. He's a great dude. He's kind of taking advantage of a circumstance where, Lathan is still dinged up, and Lathan's old too. Like you don't really need to push him back when he started as many games as he has. And he had a pretty severe injury at the end of the season. And then Malik Hartford being out, it puts Jaden Bonsu, who's a supersized safety, it puts him right in the mix to start with the ones right now next to Caleb. And I think that's an incredible spot because, you're putting on film with the first team. And, the thing about Ohio State, man, is you don't want to stay injured for too long. No matter who, it doesn't matter if you're Lathan, doesn't matter if you're Malik, whoever. It's like you got a guy in that spot now. He might be better than you. He might ball out, and Jaden's turning heads, man, because he does not look out of place out there, which is fantastic. Nevada, your thoughts on Jaden Bonsu? Because I think he's a kid that, at least as a special teamer, can give us some impact this year. But, I keep saying this is an exceptionally long season now. And I'm just excited to see some of these depth guys. Because, like, Ryan has got to play some depth guys early in the season. Because our start to the season is the softest I've ever seen in the history of Ohio State. We play like Akron, Western Michigan. It is some bad football to start the year off. But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it was interesting that they turned to him, with, like you said, with them, trying to bring Lathan along so, calmly and slowly. Yeah, it was really a big compliment. And I always look at those backup guys. That's why I would have loved to see Hartford out there, but unfortunately we're not. But, the Jermaine Matthews stuff, Aaron Scott, Jaden Bonsu. We just got so many young guys, but Bonsu's one that you hear his name a lot when you talk to. We always talk about the players know who the players are. And you ask those guys, you ask those offensive receivers about who are the guys back there, and you hear his name a lot. And you talk to the defensive guys, they talk about him being a guy that's stepping up. So you know, you knew when he came in that he could play. You just didn't know if he's going to have the opportunity. And then when he got the opportunity, he kind of seized it. But he's definitely, making noise out there. Is he good enough to start this year? No. But, in a pinch, if somebody goes down and inevitably in this type of season, somebody's going to go down, can he play? I don't think there's any question about it. I think that question's been answered, and he's been looking really good. He's a competitive kid, really gets after it, and then I like everything about his game. So I'm super excited about him.
Totally agree. Let's take a look at the schedule. The schedule, I think it sets up great for Ohio State because, you've got the cream puffs to start off. You've got Akron, you've got Western Michigan, two. I mean, those will be, 49-point spreads minimum for those two. Then you have a bye week, which I think is a little early to have 1 week 3. I think that's kind of crazy. But the good thing about the bye week is that, you can kind of recalibrate, but you can also grind those young kids. I mean, you can have those kids like really scrimmage hard, get after it in a big way. Then you got Marshall, which will be another 35-point spread at least. Then at Michigan State. They should be better. I mean, they were hapless under Mel Tucker. So it'll be interesting to see what they look like. They got a portal quarterback. I think their coach is going to be a nice upgrade from what they had. Iowa is always tough. Obviously, they've been exceptionally bad on offense, but they're really, really a physical team. They're always a physical outfit. And then you've got the big dog at Oregon, projected as preseason number 3. That is our game of the year, in my opinion. But it's you want to go win the ship, and this is the team you got to run through. But I like how this sets up Nevada. Again, do you think that is Michigan the second hardest game on the schedule to you, or is at Penn State going to be harder?
The Michigan game is certainly the most important game
Yeah.
on the schedule. Will it be the hardest game? No. At Oregon and at Penn State will be harder. I think we're going to absolutely wax Michigan this year. I do not think Michigan's going to be a good team, and I think this Ohio State team is beyond elite. So I think you're talking about two programs going in completely different directions and with completely different trajectories and with completely different staffs. So the at Penn State game, you never know. You never know how they're going to do the time. I don't think that'll be a whiteout game. I think or a night game rather. That'll probably be a whiteout, but it'll probably be a big noon kickoff type of thing, which I think would be beneficial for Ohio State. But at Penn State has been a very difficult place for us to play. I expect it'll be difficult again this year. But we're way better than them, and Drew Aller is not great. I know some people really like Drew, and really I don't think he's very good. And I think we throttled him last year. I think we'll throttle him again this year. But I can't wait for the season. The season can't get here fast enough for me. I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a big one. Real quick, a couple final things before we wrap up. This is a name to file away, folks. Neiman Lawrence is a kid. This is him with Chip Kelly. Spells the name Neimann. Lawrence is slipping down. This is his Twitter. He's a kid that we need to keep a really close eye on. He's only going to be a 9th grader, which normally I'm not into that stuff, but hey, we just got Des Jones, and we were kind of on him when he was a 9th grader. But this kid played varsity football in Florida. We actually did an episode on him last week, and he's playing varsity football as an 8th grader, and he's all that. I mean, he's the next big thing from South Florida Express. He's quarterback, and he can throw the ball. So he loves Ohio State. He was up here with the South Florida Express contingent. So if you guys want to go back and see what a phenom looks like, pay attention to that episode. We did it last week. Actually updated the thumbnail for the Chip Kelly photo because Chip Kelly, he takes the funniest photos I've ever seen because that's his smile in every single thing. And I don't know if it's because he got to get away from Martin Jarman, who's an idiot, the athletic director at UCLA, or what it is, or he's happy to be working with Ryan, or he gets to work with JJ Smith. I don't know what it is, but that's like his signature smile. which I think is hilarious. But yeah, watch that episode because it was fun breaking that down. Paul Lewis, I love this. Oh, Paul, Scoop Hall of Famer, Paul Lewis. Thank you for the 100, my man. Appreciate you. Hi guys, my appreciation to the three wrenches keeping the trolls at bay. That is Devin, Tora, and Kimbo, our three wrenches. Appreciate you guys for what you guys do. They're on here. My old lady's on there cooking dinner. She's she's like stirring up the mac and cheese with one hand and banning people with the other hand. So she's very talented. So I appreciate you, Kim. Appreciate you, Paul. I hope you make it down to Buffalo Wild Wings. Have a few beers. It'll be a great time to see you. But I appreciate all you do, my man. Nevada, your thoughts on Paul Lewis, who is thanking our three wrenches for keeping the trolls at bay in the chat.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paul. And it is amazing how many Michigan fans that we get on our chat and on our Twitter live and on our YouTube live. Um, you think they'd have other things to do rather than come in and get abused, but I guess they have to go somewhere to get the information. So, hey, if you're a Michigan fan, just behave yourself because otherwise we have no tolerance for you guys. You get out of line, you're going to get whacked. That's why we have the best moderation in the business, the cleanest chat, and we appreciate it. But Paul, thanks so much for your generosity. Thanks so much for being a Hall of Famer. And yeah, come down to Buffalo Wild Wings and to hang out with Kirk Barton for the spring game. That'll be big fun.
Hang out with Burke Carton and hang out with Nevadabuck's tab because that's going to be even. You guys think I'm big? Wait till you see the tab we're going to send to Nevadabuck. That's going to be real big. So I'm excited about that. And I'm going to tell Mickey Marotti, make sure you order another curl bar because this is going to be already a running back coach, and this guy is straight jailhouse rocked up. I mean, this dude, he's got like the 24-inch like Hogan pythons going right there. He's got like the size, I think probably a large shirt with like 24-inch guns going on. So you guys better watch out, man. I'm telling you, like there was always this thing when we were in the Woody Hayes back when I was there, who's the SOS, and the SOS was the strongest on staff. And I had that title by a mile over everybody in there, Schlegel, all those guys. But this guy might take the crown now because there ain't no Schlegs in there. There's a couple of there's some stacked up guys that are in that weight room, but James has gotten skinny now. Larry's like 78, 79 years old or whatever. So, be interesting to see. This might be the new SOS. So I'm excited to see if he takes the crown. Mello, what is up, my man? Who are the silent commits? Jimmy French is silently committed right now. There could be a few more. I mean, obviously, the safety was silently committed as of yesterday. He went with it today on Easter. So, but yeah, Jamie's in the boat. I think we get Vernell too if we straighten out some stuff. But yeah, I mean, again, that's why I don't sweat the wide receiver room at all because I know who's coming, and then we've got some monstrous guys that are coming behind him that are just absolutely going to be absolutely fantastic. Get you a couple more of those. Mello, again, thank you for the deuce. Also, it's 8-17 in Michigan. Still sucks. Nevada OH.
I-O.
Love that. Jim Jackson, my friend, thank you for the 5. What's up, Scoop family? Any word on Jordan Davison? Well, he had a great trip. And again, I think the running back stuff's all murky until we actually get a running backs coach. But, if we get our new guy in here, I think he's going to do some work. So I think everything's kind of a holding pattern as of right now. But I think that this guy's going to crush Tony Alford. And, I just think Michigan's kind of in a tailspin. Again, you guys have to understand, like, the infrastructure and what's around a running back is so critical, namely the offensive line, especially in college. So I think that he'll warm up to whoever we have, and whoever we put in an Ohio State polo, magically, if they put in any type of work, they become an excellent recruiter. Now, there's some that become like Brian Hartline and James Laurinaitis and what Tim Walton is. And again, it's easy to recruit when you're at Ohio State. It's even easier when you played at Ohio State like those three did because they can really talk that talk because they played there. But like when Kerry Combs was here, he was like a world-class national recruit of the year. And again, nothing against Kerry, but he's at Cincinnati now and he's not getting the same dudes because he's not at Ohio State. So when guys leave Ohio State, magically they're not as good of recruiters because Ohio State is bigger than anybody. The brand is massive, and the brand's hot. Like that's the big thing is like kids, they know what's hot, and they're gonna see Marvin go top 5 in the draft. JJ's gonna be all over ESPN and College Game Day, and the preseason top 2, 1 or 2. If Georgia or them is gonna be number 1 on all the magazines and all the grocery stores. So Ohio State's hot right now. So it makes it a lot easier when you're the hot brand. And again, when you've got guys like Saban retiring and Harbaugh leaving, and really like Kirby at Georgia is like the biggest threat right now. And so, we're kind of in the catbird seat at this point. So Jim, I hope you make it to the Buffalo. I saw you, you were talking about the Buffalo Wild Wings get together. I'd love to meet you. I hope you make it to that. I think it'll be fantastic. My wife said you also went to Florida State. So go Noles. I hope they join the Big Ten soon. Paul Lewis, thank you for the 50. Appreciate you, my man. Coming, and Kirk, you're going to need muscles for your surprise. Oh God.
Oh my.
Like, I'm not gonna get tasered again, am I? That'd be terrible.
Maybe it's a keg. Do you think it's like a big keg?
You think? But I won't need muscles for that because if you just drink that dry, it gets lighter as you drink it, right? So I mean, the time I'm done with it, it'll be like a paperweight,
like a pony keg.
So yeah, it'll be like a pony keg. That's a great distinction there. So I think we can wrap this thing up. I'm looking forward to seeing you, Paul. I think it's gonna be awesome. I think we're gonna have a great time, and I think it's gonna be a huge meeting. We got a ton of people that are excited about it, so it's gonna be a great night or a great morning at Buffalo Wild Wings. So we're excited to meet you. So I appreciate you, my friend. Nevada, any final thoughts as we wrap the show up?
I'll leave you guys with a final little Nevada nugget. I think I'm not going to name him, but there was a certain 5-star running back that was there this weekend that I think Ohio State's in way better shape than anybody knows. Wink, wink. So, but look for some activity on that. And as this running back coach position kind of firms up, that position that may firm up as well. Wink, wink. So something just to ruminate on as you kind of go through this great Ohio State recruiting weekend. It could get even better.
I love that. And I'll leave you guys with a little nugget. This is a guy you should get real familiar with because this is a guy that had a blast. Caden Dixon-Wyatt is probably the best receiver in the country, class of 26. He's actually playing with Chris Henry. And I'm not kidding. That might be the best wide receiver duo in the history of high school football. I mean, that's literally probably the top 2 receivers. This kid is a monster. And he was here this weekend. And he likes Ohio State. Obviously having his running mate be Chris Henry Jr. does not hurt us, but this kid is nasty, disgusting. So there's my little final nugget. That being said, happy Easter. Appreciate you guys as always kicking it with us. Thank you guys for all you guys do to make this a great show. This was another huge show, all because of you guys. So thank you guys for everything you guys do. We appreciate you guys for tuning in on your Easter Sunday. I hope you guys had a great day. Jesus is risen. Great day for the entire world. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. And join BuckeyeScoop.com. We had a huge number of people on there all day today. Always fun to kick it with everybody. So just loving it. It's been an absolute blast, and I'm just excited to see it grow. Excited for this get together. I think it's going to be a blast. It's about 2 weeks from yesterday. So the time will fly, and we'll be there soon. So I'm just excited to see you guys. With that being said, if you guys could leave us like and shout out, like I said, who are you guys watching the show with? Shout out where you guys are watching from. Let me know what you guys had for your Easter feasts, because I always like to see what you guys are cooking on. It's always fun to do. So as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. We're going to go at 7 tomorrow, so be ready to rock. See you guys tomorrow. Have a great night. Go Bucks.